afterwards.
We're going live now. So, yes, we are live. I'm here with my friend Michael. How you doing, Michael?
Oh, very well. Very nice to meet you, David.
So, I don't really know you. I know you're silly and fun, but do you mind talking us through your backstory, how you were raised, when did you first discover God and religion, all that good stuff? If there's an eccentric uncle that was a Scientologist or anything, just pepper your story with little nuggets like that. And lead us up to today and talk about your YouTube channel and what you're doing. That's when I first discovered you, I think was on YouTube or Twitter, one way or the other. But just talk us through the whole faith journey and right up until today.
So I'm the seventh child in a family of six. I mean, no, I'm the seventh child in a family of 13.
Oh, really?
So like, yeah. And I'm the pig me too type of personality. I always either followed my older brother or my younger brother. And so like everything was just procedural down the line. I noticed you had Father Sebastian from the Norbertines. I was at summer camp with him
No
when
way.
before he was a priest. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
no
watching that
way.
interview.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is he a nice guy?
Yeah, this whole LA thing. Yeah. Guess where we were? We were like, oh, let's go down to the Norbertines. But I had discovered very early on from going to the Norbertines primarily that there was a huge difference between like mass celebrated by people who loved God and mass celebrated by the priest whose job it was to say mass. Because he used to have like 5 homilies and like you'd get them the first 5 weeks and then you have half of one and half of another. And then he just mixed them up and then he'd do them all 5 again. So like I remember there was a story that he would always tell of like he was at a restaurant and the dancer picked up the table with his mouth. And I was like, that's impossible. That's not possible. He can't pick up a table with his mouth. So even from like the time I was 9, I was already like, this Novus Ordo is kind of fishy, because like he had no problem just saying this. Or like he had this other homily about transubstantiation, and he confused transubstantiation, which I knew because my mom's tough on me, with transformation. He was like, the guy turned into a chair. That's transubstantiation. Like, no, the form, not the substance. Like I would know this from like 9 and 10 years old. And then I'd go back and visit the Norbertines and I was like, I want what the Norbertines have. I would eventually, when I was 17, I would go to visit the Norbertines for a Triduum. I knew inwardly I wasn't called to be a priest, but I still wanted to go. And I wanted it so badly that I just pretty much forced myself to believe that I was supposed to be a priest. And the reason I knew I wasn't supposed to be a priest was because I didn't have inward silence. Like day 2 of being there, I was deafening the silence. It was like a crushing weight. So then I just started inwardly talking nonstop from then on out. I completely flubbed my interview with Father Justin, and he told me to go to college. So I went to Franciscan University.
Ah.
Yay.
Did you meet any of the big names there?
Not really. It's I did philosophy, and yeah, you meet Dr. Crosby, and he's like cranky, old, and insane, and you didn't learn that much from him. Like teachers in the classroom and teachers in books and lectures are 2 different things. Some teachers are good, some teachers are But I met Dr. John White. And Dr. John White, he was like critical of everyone, just as his natural personality. So from him, I had already picked up, like by second year in college, just how to be nonstop critical. But because I grew up in a family of 13, and I actually reference this in my videos all the time, like the brother in front bullied me and the brother in behind ignored me. So like I was always getting criticism from either side. And I really feel that a lot of people grew up without this harsh criticism, so that they could never look inwardly on themselves and be like, oh, this is terrible. Like every podcast I do, I have to think to myself, oh, this is a bomb. This is a total bomb. I can't believe I chose this video, and I hope someone watches it. Because like you think about it critically, you're like, it's not really that fun. You didn't really explain things. But I had that attitude throughout college. And so like I believed all sorts of stupid things. Like I believed the Iraq war was 100% good. And I was like, rah, rah, let's go kill some Iraqis. And then someone pointed out to me, hey, this is the church's teaching on just war. And it says you can't kill civilians. And there were civilians killed. And it's like, what? No one told me there were civilians killed. Like I have these moments all the time where like I would be like, oh, this is the economic law that we should have. And then someone would be like, oh, the church says we should have private property in Rem Navarum. And like, what? No one told me that. And like, I just kept doing this over. I just like hit my head into the wall, go here, hit my head into the wall. And so like, eventually, how do I tell this story? Right, eventually, I was in the Preeti program in college. Then they told me they didn't want me either. I stayed at college till master's. And then a man I respect very much was like, you should probably go home and mend all your relationships there, because I had been away from home for like a while now. And so I went there and I came home, and I've been working the family business ever since.
Ah,
And then around 2019 something, or 2018, I think, something interesting happened. And that was I confronted my parish priest on not following the general instructions of the Roman Missal. Because when I was in college, we studied the general instructions of the Roman Missal in sacred music class. Oh, by the way, I did Schola Cantorum for 11 semesters in college. A little something I did. So like I knew everything in here, and he didn't know. And I was like, you can't do this. And he was like, but I can, so I don't care. And I was like, wait, my Novus Ordo priest just disregarded the legal authority for his own script, his own mass. So I was like, oh, I can't attend this mass anymore. He says, because in 2003, that general instruction of Roman Missal has option 4, and it says you can use any acceptable hymn. Ratzinger comes along and he says, nah, we'll remove that one and we'll give you a different option 4. So I told my priest, you can't have any other hymn according to the letter of the law. And he just blew me off. So I was like, huh? And I mean, I could go a long time about how the Novus Ordo was continually pushing me out in college. Is the only year I didn't. There was one Sunday I literally hated the mass so much I wouldn't go. That's what Franciscan University did to me, and I repented of that, and I went back the next week and confessed that. But like that was my relationship with the Novus Ordo Church, and the whole time it just got harder and harder and harder until eventually COVID hit. And COVID's like the greatest blessing this world has ever seen, because it divided the sheep from the wolves. Those who had it just divided the world so much that then I just like realized, wait, and all my brothers, because like 3 of them had already given up on the Novus Ordo by this point, but they're just too scared to say it. We just all like, we don't even believe this. Why are we going? Like, we're reading the Bible, we're reading the office. We say the old office of the hours. And we're like, we don't believe what the Novus Ordo Church is telling us. And I had already listed out like all the incorrect things with the Novus Ordo Mass, like the words of consecration, postures of the priest, certain things like that. And we all of a sudden just woke up one day and found ourselves we're Sedes.
Wow.
So
what about your sisters though?
Oh, excuse me. I'm drinking a little bit of coffee de vida right now. I like to make that point because I'm very affected by blood sugar.
Okay.
I'm probably pre-diabetic. So if you give me sugar, I'll start talking. My family right now is about half and half, actually. Because there's 13 of us. It's about like 7 or 6 are Sedes and 5 are still Novus Ordo and 1's Anglican. I think
Oh,
that's where
yeah?
we're at.
Ah, what about the parents?
Yeah, one of them's in the ordinary. Both parents are Sedes. They're hardcore Sedes.
Oh, no way.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Well, in the growing up in the 80s in LA, they had the what's his name? What's the that cardinal that everyone hates, who was the cardinal of LA?
I don't know.
I don't remember his name, but like, I
You,
feel so
you want me to
young.
Google it?
He was an
Los
Italian guy.
Angeles.
Yeah, it's Mahoney.
Okay.
Cardinal Mahoney.
Ah, okay.
So like everyone was like holding on to the faith, and they were like fighting it in the streets, like, you know, like the Novus Ordo Catholics tend to do even to this day. Like there's some good people, and even in the Protestants, you see them every once in a while online. Like they still try to fight for something. They try to fight for Christianity. And then like they have Mahoney like hitting them in the back of the head, like ha ha ha. It's like my dad printed books in the 80s. Like, oh, this book is going out of print. Well, I'll just print it. And my whole life, I remember my mother growing up being like, you know, I was there before Vatican II. I was there before they burned all our books. So that was always in the back of my head. I never knew what that meant. You're just like, oh yeah, it's Cardinal Mahoney. He's just like destroying things. Haha. So like that's what I come out of. It's really this like, what happened to my world? Where is everything supposed to be? And because I never got married, it was always like in my face that like, oh, you didn't do something. So then like every time I'd go to mass, it would be like hit you back in the face, because like my married siblings, they're pretty much all Novus Ordos and Anglicans, because they're like, they have their life, it's already set, they don't want to upset the apple cart. But me, I'm just like irritable single dude, just like, what's wrong with the world? Everybody's wrong but me. And then the Sedes offer you actual arguments. And I watched, and this is one thing that I really wanted to say, because whether or not you're a Sede or not, whether or not you believe that, let's put that to the side. The content online is not, the Novus Ordos do not defend their position strong enough. Like I watched Bishop Sanborn and Dr. Fastigi from 2004, I want to believe. And Bishop Sanborn, like pretty much German suplexed him through the floor. It was ridiculous. Dr. Fastigi is just talking to the people for like his opening speech. He's like, why are you guys schismatics? You're not supposed to be schismatics. And Bishop Sanborn's like, well, this is the problem with this over here. And if you read this, this is what over here. And then Dr. Fastigi is like in a different debate. So like me, as when I'm looking at this and trying to balance this in my head, I feel like the Novus Ordo Church completely ignores their own glaring errors. And so it's like, even a lot of content today that I ridicule, it's because I watched it all back then, and I was like, give me something that sinks my teeth into it. Because growing up, the biggest thing I had learned about the faith was just reading the lives of the saints. And you're thinking Saint Tarcisius. Well, in one of my videos, Magic Bread, Free Heaven, I have a little line at quoting Udinum Sint 50 and Eucharistia Ecclesia 48 to 49. And they're like, oh, well, if the Lutherans approach you for Eucharist, you can give it to them. But St. Tarcisius died before he let the other people have the Eucharist. So like, this is like really troublesome, because the faith is real and alive, and it's more real. And that's the thing. I'm looking for this in the Novus Ordo Church. Give me the real faith. And my priest is like, COVID's here. I'm just gonna sit in my hammock for a year and a half, and call me up if you want to talk, but I'm probably not answering the phone. So it's like a lot of people really underestimate how perfect and amazing the faith is, and they don't know how to find the answers to these questions.
Yeah, I just want to interject here. I'm something of a freedom fighter myself and a bit of a rebel, and so I didn't buy into COVID right from the onset, and didn't get the prescribed recommended thing that everyone was supposed to get. But anyway, I had a really rough time. I was physically abused in the church because I went in without a vax passport, even though my bishop told me that I should go in without a vax passport because I'll never be turned away from any Catholic church, So I ran into some problems, and I was obviously disappointed, to put it mildly, with the people at that level of the hierarchy anyway, even though they're lower down than my local bishop. But in any case, I found refuge in a quote-unquote conservative Catholic parish. It was FSSP, and they were sort of doing things a little bit differently, and they allowed me access and stuff like that. I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to get them in hot water. But in any case, I was very impressed with them, and not so impressed with 99.9% of the Novus Ordo churches, because they all just obeyed. And I kept coming back to there's a hierarchy: God, the Pope, the bishops, and the cops are very low in this hierarchy, as are the politicians. They're very, very, very low in this hierarchy, right? Yep. So none of the Catholics I spoke to seemed to understand what I was talking about when I was talking about the hierarchy. But I came into the church as an enemy of the church. I knew that the church was corrupt, and so I wasn't that surprised. I was disappointed, but not terribly surprised. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of context that, I feel you, I hear you, I'm with you, and it's a sad situation.
And we always need to distinguish between people on a journey and believers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are on a journey and we should have charity towards those on a journey. But like people who are hard stuck in a belief, we do need to viciously and ruthlessly attack everything they post online without any charity whatsoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I actually came when I came back home in like 2013. I think that's around it. I started to get into economics. So I like just listened to the first 1,000 episodes of the Tom Woods podcast, like all but 3. I read books on this, like I was going nuts on all this stuff. So like if you see my videos, I have a video on economics.
Cool.
What's that have to do with Catholicism? Well, it's an area that a lot of Catholics don't study, and so they just say random things. You'll get random fascist Catholics online. I'm like, it's literally condemned. And then they're like, no, I'm a fascist Catholic. Like, run. They exist. It's so like no matter what I do, you go on Twitter and you see the people and you laugh and then you get triggered and then you make a video. That's what it is right now.
Well, I'm extremely ignorant of 2 things, politics and economics, and I make no apologies for it. I just was never interested and have a hearty disdain for all that garbage. But it's also a weak point. I admit that it's a point of weakness that I haven't looked into these things to have any opinions. But I defer to the church. The tradition of the church when it comes to principles like the principle of subsidiarity and just a few basics, a few basics that I've gleaned from my reading about the history of the church. But it's so ugly, even the politics of the church. Like if you read the councils, if you read, the history of the popes, and I don't know what the last pope is that you recognize. Which one would that be?
We're Pius the 12th first.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we go all the way back. We get rid of Roncalli. We start there because
some go further back than that. Some go further back than that.
Yeah, but come on. If you're going to be completely honest, the Fenians go back to like the 3rd century. That's what they actually go back to when things were first started to be defined. Okay. Does it count for something if you get called out by bro diamonds? Like it's like you should get a placard mailed to you. I was attacked by the Feniites. Congratulations, 1 star.
Is that what
Catholic
Brother Diamond
Twitter.
is? Is he a Feniite?
Yeah.
I always invite him on. He always ignores me.
Yeah, he's really weird.
Is he bright?
He's incredibly smart, and he's very texty. And texty people are very obnoxious.
Texty means he's into texts?
Into texts, yes.
Yeah.
If you've ever been on a philosophy campus and you want to see where like mentally slow people are, go to the philosophy department and ask them about texts. They won't shut up. They won't be able to give you exact things, but they're not going to ever stop talking. Like all my degrees are in philosophy. Well, I failed my master's. I got a minor in sacred music and a minor in theology from Franciscan University. But yeah, it's like you'd go there and I'd talk to philosophy students. I'd be like, oh, these are my friends. And then I'd talk to a girl and she'd be like, are you a human being? I didn't even know I wasn't a human being. So it's just like...
where would you, like, I mean, this is a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. Where do you rank yourself in terms of, among the siblings, maybe just the guys? I don't know if is there a difference between your brothers and your sisters, like temperamentally or in terms of emphasis in life generally?
I don't know. Everything seems to change depending on what's going on.
Well, like, I mean, are you, do you see yourself like as a nerdy intellectual type or what?
Everyone in the family is a nerd.
Oh, okay.
Because we're homeschooled, and everyone except like the first 4, everyone except for the first 4 were completely homeschooled. Like I'm self-educated from 6th grade to 12th.
Oh, okay.
My mom did like nothing.
I'm just wondering, I mean, it's an awkward question to ask, but I'm just wondering if there's a known hierarchy, who's the brightest, who's the dimmest in the family, in the kids?
I think the youngest brother is actually the brightest. But there's so many problems with the temperaments that it's really hard to know, because like me and the second eldest brother are probably the most aggressive when it comes to intellectual conversations. So like if something gets brought up and we know something about it, we're going to speak up over people, no matter what, whether it's right or wrong. So there's a lot of that. But as the younger siblings hit their 20s, because like what, I'm 35 now, and the youngest is 22 or something. Haha, doctor. Um, as that goes on, the youngest ones actually, they mature a lot, and the older ones, they haven't studied in a while. So then like, oh yeah, you got to have some humility. Half of the reason I could say that I'm a Sadie at all is because my youngest brother read everything before me, and then I would throw at him the R&R standard positions like, you can't obey a bad pope, and he'd be like, you can't have a bad pope, and I'd be like, oh, I'll be back to you next week. And then like he would grill me, and I'm like, but he's smarter than me. I know he's smarter than me because he's read this stuff more recently than I have. So like, as long as it's not sacred music, I listen to whatever he says. That's one thing that Dr. John White impressed upon me during my time in college. It's whenever you find someone who's smarter than you, this is also works in business as well. You ride their coattails. I found Bishop Sanborn. He knows more than me. I just put on 10 hours of Bishop Sanborn. I'm just going to go through them. I found Taylor Marshall at one point when I was still R&R. I just put on 10 hours of Taylor Marshall because he was smarter than me. Like, that's what I would do. And so then eventually you're like, okay, but he didn't answer this argument. Then you have to go to this point. And then all of a sudden I realize I've never read Vatican I. Well, I'm a 32-year-old Catholic who's never read Vatican I. Ha ha ha. Is it really long? Vatican II was really long. No, it's not really long. Like, oh, you mean all this time I was just lazy? Oh boy.
What's the, it's not particularly relevant, but I'm curious, what's the family business that you came back to run?
I wish it was making hot drinks. But it's in hospitality. We live in just a place in the general area of Yosemite. So it's like California with mountains. Really nice.
Wow.
It's like 10 to 15 degrees colder here than it is everywhere normally. This year, I think we've had a total of 11 days of summer. Yeah, it gets to like 77 in the middle of the day. You're like, wow, I can go outside now.
This is a little bit of a random question, but someone recommended that I read the life of Father de Smet, the Jesuit missionary. Do you know anything about him? Because I think he may have passed by Yosemite.
Yeah, he's passed through this area, so as I think all sorts of people. I don't really know very much about Father de Smet. Whenever I'd studied the saints, it's usually like, I don't know, 1800s and back.
Yeah. You know, I'm not assuming here that you have a great answer, but I'm just curious to ask you anyway. What is your take on the whole, the North America, the colonization and all this sorts of things, the church coming in? I know there was a big distinction made in that book about Father Smet about, a distinction made between the evil government and the good Catholic Church. I'm wondering if they romanticized it in the book, or if it's actually true that the Catholics were good, they were welcomed by a lot of the tribes, and that the government was evil. Do you have any opinion about that?
Well, I've read this book. It's Spanish Roots of America by Bishop David Arias.
Okay.
And it's gone through how essentially in the early 1500s, from like the 1530s to the 1850s, the entirety of the Spanish hierarchy was just sending money over to the Americas to build universities and to build civilization up. So by comparison to the modern take, where they're like, oh, they're just there to steal money. No, I think building the empire, the conquest of the Americas by the Catholics, was a losing economic adventure. I think it was a really stupid idea. They just pretty much bankrupted themselves and made a bunch of saints. Oh, wait. That's the point of the Catholic Empire.
Yeah. Well,
but
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm riding your coattails here.
All right. But I was going to say, because when you study philosophy, you primarily study Northern philosophy, the Germans, British. that, or the continental, British stuff, you don't really realize that by the time the French, who are also very secular at this time, and the Germans have started to stumble upon human rights, it's the late 1600s. But in the 1530s, the Catholic Church had already said you can convert the Indians, and converted Indians have full protection. And so the Catholics were pretty much saying you should try to convert everybody. They are actual human beings. And as early as
I lost your video. I lost your video, but it'll come back probably.
Maybe. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, as early as I think 1504, 1505, the king had Las Casas debating publicly about whether or not the Indians were people. So therefore, when you've studied this and you read European philosophy, which Dr. White taught this point, and you're like, oh wait, they already were fully alive with this whole let's replug that back in, with the whole human rights in the early 1500s, and then the Enlightenment doesn't happen till the late 1600s. You're like, wait a second, this whole thing was a big lie. This was all a big scam. I was being scammed that there's great enlightenment and human values. So like, it's part of the rotating theme of my life that I'm getting scammed all the time. Like, what's up with this?
Yeah. I'm just picking your brain because you do seem very bright. When it comes to, ecology and, being stewards of the earth as we're supposed to as Catholics, and, not polluting so much and these sorts of things. And then, the dark side of the green movement and all that nonsense, and hypocrisy and just contradictions. What is your vision really? Maybe you don't care at all, but what is your vision like philosophically about humans and stewarding this creation and all the scare tactics of the godless baby killers? Like, they're just trying to scare us all the time. But, the church also does say that we have to steward, and it's probably best not to pollute the village downstream from you and all these sorts of things.
What? Why? They're not people. We're the only people. The issue that I have with most of this stuff is in the book, I think it's Newman's book, Idea of a University. He says there's a philosophy of philosophy that correctly places everything in relation to each other. And the center point has to be the Catholic faith. I believe that in a truly free market, because I'm an ANCAP, by the way, but we're supposed to be monarchists. I'm an ANCAP. I'm a Ron Paulian ANCAP, right? In a truly free market environment, you would realize that you have a moral duty, because the church is there to inform you of your moral duty to set things right in the world. And that the most efficient system, which is anarcho-capitalism, I believe, would make the least amount of an imprint on the earth itself. So I think that there's a certain harmony in all truth that is overlapping with itself, that when we remove one thing from the center and we put something else in there, it actually disrupts everything. So like when politics becomes the center, right, then all of a sudden everything is politics. When science becomes center, everything is science. Like all of a sudden, whether or not I have plastic bags is an issue. Well, that's because that's the center of someone else's life. So it's like whatever has the key in the middle determines how all the other sciences work.
Yeah. I often think about, the problem of politics, just like we think we can vote ourselves out of tyranny, these sorts of things. I often think about it in terms of like a prison. And if I, sweet, innocent, but very weak and naive, if I entered a prison, I would not set about saying, hey, I discovered their gangs and mafias, and I'm like, hey guys, let's clean this up. Like, no, I would keep my mouth shut, put my head down, and try not to get raped and killed. So it's the same thing with politics. Like, I'm just trying to not get raped and killed, metaphorically by the politicians. But, Jesus Christ, when he walked the earth, he said, pay your taxes, and if you're a slave, be a good slave, and these sorts of things. So that's kind of what I'm following as a sort of my basic political philosophy. But in terms of like this prison analogy and the gangs and the mafias that are there, I find it incredibly naive. Like when Nick Fuentes says, oh, well, we're going to like reform the system or whatever from within and make America great again, and we're all going to be Catholic and we're all going to be white. I don't know why he's concerned about that, but I think a lot of these people are naive, maybe because they're young. But what's your take in terms of my prison planet vision here?
I mostly agree with you because I'm not like an extroverted person who wants to go out there and convert the world. Like to me, it's more of a leave me alone personality. So like, yeah, I think a lot of people they have a messianic complex, and then they're on a camera, and then all of a sudden they just think they can say all sorts of weird stuff. Like, have you noticed? This is something I want to throw in the face of all the people who think white people are better. By the way, I actually do believe white people are better. But I also believe that most people who are white are going to hell. Like I'm as a Sede, who are all the R&R people? They're all white. Like, and as a SedePicante, I believe they're all in the wrong religion. So even though if I'm a white supremacist, I'm not a supremacist, but I believe that white is better. I'd rather be black and be humble and go to heaven than be white and be right and be intelligent and go to hell. Like, what's the goal here? These people lose their mind for the goal and they just want to have this is the world I want to live in. Wow. Well, have you ever broken your leg and been like, wow, this is the world I want to live in? I need to walk. Like, have you ever had something taken away from you that's yours? Like a bodily ailment, like not being able to eat properly, like not being able to sleep? Don't we have that every day? And then we're like, oh, but I can imagine a world. I can just make it up as I go. You can't even sleep at night and you're going to make a world work? Like, these people are insane. But there is a passage in the scriptures, which is very interesting. And it does relate to this, right? And it's Matthew 17:26, that we may not scandalize and go to the sea and cast in a hook that fish which first cometh up take, and when thou hast opened its mouth, thou shalt find a slater, take that and give it to them for thee and for me. Why is this passage important? Jesus can make gold. Why is he making Peter go do work? Because all the scriptures are all better. It goes back to what I said before. The concept of truth makes all other things true. Having Jesus in the perfect center makes everything else work. Christ wants man to work. He could pay the tax, just poof, make money. He chooses not to. What does our government do? Our government chooses to poof, make money. That's an exceedingly diabolical thing. Like, people don't even realize. They're like, oh yeah, it just is a problem with the system. No. This is explicitly not what you're supposed to do in the Bible. They're explicitly doing it. This is a huge issue. And then we wonder why there's mass slaughter of infants, why they're going to war everywhere, why they're burning the planet pretty much. Like, on a fundamental level, our society is ruined. And we have to like actually come to terms with that.
Are you able, Jesus also said you have to be like a little child to enter the kingdom. So I'm just wondering, you seem very innocent and childlike, which is good, which is good, you know, which is a good thing. Can you sniff out hypocrites and liars pretty easily, even through a television set or your computer screen, or no?
No. My family has a bad habit of wanting absolute truths from people. It's just like, hello, my name is David. You know, that's my dad's name. Do you believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, which you have to be united to the Pope to be saved? That's essentially how he does half of his communication, it seems to me.
Would he come on and chat with me on my podcast? That would be fun.
That would be fun. I don't know. He's kind of technologically illiterate.
You could be there beside him, helping him.
Maybe we can ask him.
Ask him. You can ask him.
But so like a lot of people don't understand the role of objective truth, so they just kind of go on, and you're like, yeah, but do you believe in objective truth? And if they say no, you're kind of got to be wondering about them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems that one of the reasons why I'm a Sede more than anything else. It's like, do I believe Vatican I is true? Like, I can put my entire faith into Vatican I. Well, if it's true, and then I say Vatican I and Vatican II contradict each other, we have to actually deal with this problem, not be like, you know, Michael Lofton and be like, well, here's the interpretation. And then if we change this hermeneutic over here, right, it loses the sense of objectivity. And as I made a point in a recent video, the objective world is the most perfect way for Christ to reach every person. Like, that there is truth, that there is a better way to live your life, and that in embracing the message of Jesus Christ, your life will be full. Even if your life on earth is complete trash, garbage, and hell for the rest of it, your life will still be true because he is true, right? So there has to be something objective that's absolutely solid that I can put everything onto. And one of the people that I learned that the most actually is a Protestant. There'd be Sam Shamoon. Have you ever come across his videos?
Was he connected with that guy that I liked that died, that had some controversy over sex? Remember that guy?
I don't know.
Ravi Zacharias? Was he connected with him?
I think they all knew each other because like they're all in those evangelical circles at the time. But
was he a Muslim that converted? Shamoon?
He fights the Muslims.
Sam
He's
Shamoon.
a Syrian.
Okay.
Yeah. Sam Shamoon is like, I've never heard a Protestant actually believe in the Bible like Sam Shamoon.
Okay.
That he said like it's the absolute perfect inspired word of God, perfectly preserved by the Holy Spirit to this day, to this letter. We know every single text. That's the level of confidence.
Wow.
Right? He's become a lot more open to the fathers in the last few years because he talks to William Albrecht. But you'll notice I never discuss William Albrecht on my on SedePicante.
I don't know who that is.
He's another one of these small theologian guys. He has a little group of people he teaches. But I don't think William Albrecht has a bad place in his heart, and he doesn't come off as like offensive to me. He comes off as mistaken. I'm a SedePicante. It's like I take SedePicante as the absolute gospel truth. Like Pius XII was the last pope. That's an absolute fact.
Last one ever, including in the future, or
no. I think we'll have a pope in the next 10 years.
I interviewed Pope Michael. Do you remember him?
Oh.
He was a nice guy. He was a nice guy.
The amount of interviews you've done. I was just scrolling through it one day. I'm like, ooh, you talked to this atheist. Who is that guy? The one who looks like a Klingon.
Aaron Roth?
This is like, yeah, Aaron Roth. That was like 3 years ago. And the whole time I'm looking, just imagining your face, like even like you're right now. You're just like, going, ha ha ha. Well, what about this? And he's like, the faith is completely brainwashing you. And he's like, there's this hum and this green smoke coming out as he finishes every sentence. It's like,
no, he's a sweetheart. He's a sweet guy. He's really nice. One of my favorites. Yes.
But yeah, one of the reasons why I like to rag on the Novus Ordos also is because I think our online content, and if I have any takeaway, what I wanted to actually talk about was this. Yeah. Our online content as Catholics sucks. It just straight up sucks. Like 90% of it is, hey, I have an issue. Do you want to talk about it? And then like, oh yes, I'm an expert. I will talk about this issue. It's like, oh my gosh. You listen to one interview, you've listened to this. People give the same interview on different shows now. It's insane. Like, even in the Sedes, some of their content is dumb. It's just so dumb. Oh, that's why I do SedePicante, because I just want to roast people. I want to get different content out there. Like, your show's different because you talk to, like, screwballs like SedePicante. Who the heck is this screwball from California who lives on a mountain with his parents? Like, unimportant.
Oh, well, that reminds me, I was going to ask you earlier, like, do you ever get accused of being autistic? Because I get accused of that.
No.
No, no one's giving you the amateur diagnosis?
No. People's comments are usually like, they're mean and spiteful, but like, it doesn't work. Because I got bullied my whole time growing up, because that's what happens when you have siblings. Like, they actually steal on steel. Like, I physically fight with my siblings still.
Seriously?
Yes, we do. We're not little people. It happens like once every 6 years or something.
Okay.
That we've had it. We're just going to throw it down. We're not children. You cross the line, we're going to come for you. Even if you're my brother.
What are the unspoken rules? What are the unspoken rules? Like no headshots, you can't punch the face, or...
We never have discussed that. We just haven't like ever hurt each other so bad to where we need to.
You try not to hurt the person too badly.
Yeah, it's mostly you want to sit on the other person.
Oh, it's like
and,
wrestling. It's more like wrestling submission
yeah,
style.
yeah, it's more like wrestling.
Ah, okay.
But I work out, so like, and they don't, so I don't care. But like, that's actually what we are. Like, we're just normal people. You call me a bad word, I might want to beat you up tomorrow. Like, you got to put the cool down, because I also play a lot of video games. Right? You got to wait for the cooldown to come down before you can say the next bad word.
What's
But
your
like,
what's your ethnic background, if you don't mind me asking?
oh, I'm Latino, German, Norwegian. My last name Naaden is from Norway.
Oh, no way. I thought it was Arabic.
Yes, no, it's Nadim is Arabic. Naaden is Norwegian.
Oh, this
Everybody says this to me. In fact, people look when I have a beard. People say, "Oh, look, you're East Asian, or I mean West Asian or Eastern European." I'm like, no, I'm Mexican. I have a niece who's a Mexican baby. She's probably like 70% Mexican or something. Blue eyes, fair skin, brown hair.
you're
She's got the Spanish. She's got a lot of Spanish.
you're charming and you're good looking. I'm surprised you haven't met a wife.
Yeah, I'm 0 and 6 in that. No matter what I do, it just always seems to fail.
What kind of women are you attracted to?
Ones that talk, I guess. It's kind of hard because I've learned the advanced communication skills, and not all women have. So it's a little hard to teach them and you how to communicate. And usually the relationships don't last long enough to get to that point. So it's actually kind of burdensome to talk.
You've come to the market with bars of gold and no one's going to trade with you.
Eh,
You need
Yeah,
some
but I don't
small
know.
coinage. You need some little
I need some
copper coins, some
Bitcoin.
little copper coins. You need to dumb it down a bit.
I don't know. Maybe I just like. I don't know.
Well, you're quirky. You're quirky, right? So do you like quirky
Yes.
girls?
Yes, I like to date musicians primarily, but I am a musician, so
What do you play?
I used to play organ and piano.
Wow, no way.
I'm mostly just compose now.
Wow.
I've been composing for like 11 years.
Can you send us to some website where we can listen to a bunch of your stuff?
You can actually just type my name, Michael Naaden, into YouTube, and it's my secondary channel.
Oh,
Actually,
no
it's
way.
my primary channel. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So if you just did that now, you'd see
Yeah.
like me without being shaved.
Okay.
From maybe even 6-7 years ago, and just a long list of
Cool.
music. Yeah.
Do you do any MIDI composition?
MIDI?
Yeah.
As in, yeah. Oh no, actually everything I
Computer.
do is electric. Everything I do is from electric, pretty much. I discovered that I don't like to practice music.
Yeah.
Like practicing, no.
You're
3
more of a
hours of
composer.
practicing.
You're a
music, no.
composer. You're a composer.
I just compose now.
And what is
But
it? What are some of the adjectives that you would use to describe your preferences in terms of composition?
Computer game music, a lot of synths. I sometimes write hymns. I write a polyphony piece every few years. Because I studied sacred music, so I took 4 semesters of theory.
You said 11 semesters. You were exaggerating when you
No,
said...
I was 4 semesters of music theory, but I was singing for 11 semesters because I was there for masters.
Ah.
Instead of coming home, which is what you usually do for summers, I stayed there and played hooky.
No way. Are you good? Do you have a good voice? Are you good at singing?
No,
Oh.
they just didn't have enough men.
Are you alto or what?
I'm a tenor. It's
Tenor.
also one of the things. If you've ever, all my friends who imitate me always talk like this. Hey guys, I'm Michael. I
Yeah.
talk in a really high voice.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm a tenor. Not a real tenor, but like I'm a tenor. Also, since I grew up with playing only siblings, right? All
Yeah.
we did was talk in voices.
Are you serious?
Like, yeah, that's why, like, it's really boring to me when I watch other people's content and they're like, I am reading off of a script. Pause. This is what happens next. It's like, can you put a little bit of like something in there? Oh,
What were your favorite cartoons growing up? Did you watch any?
probably just like some Tom and Jerry. Probably just primarily Tom and Jerry. I watch a lot of anime as well. I'm a weeb. Yo,
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
Someone who adores Japanese culture for no good reason.
Ah.
So like the anime I most like is Nichiju, which is just like this completely bizarre, zany, out of proportion show with kids in high school. It's like,
Did you
you know,
like the Godzilla movies? No?
my best friend in college watches the Godzilla every week. He has Godzilla posters. I sent him a 4-foot tall Godzilla poster once, and he texted me back immediately that it was the greatest present ever.
I like
I
Mothra.
despise.
I like Mothra. So cute.
Oh, I despise Godzilla.
I'm not
it's
a fan.
embarrassing.
I'm not a fan of Godzilla, but my friend showed me Mothra, and I thought it was cute.
Oh. I noticed you have a lot of sacred art in your room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also grew up with like that as well. Like I have. This is a strange room because there's actually 5 pictures of a cartoon, and there's only 4 sacred art pictures.
Well,
like,
my wife's Greek Orthodox culturally. She doesn't practice, but she insists, because she hates the Catholic Church so much, she insists that I get my icons from a Greek Orthodox icon store.
Yeah.
She's also a Sede, if it makes you feel any better. She's a SedePicante.
So we all can't be wrong, right?
She hates Pope Francis so much.
Oh
so you two would get along.
Yeah, I don't really hate Pope Francis as much as I used to anymore, though, because like I don't have a relationship with him. Like,
did you watch the Hulu documentary where we talked to the kids?
No.
Did you? You don't want to watch it?
No, that was the one where he was like, "Oh, sometimes we need to like be more compassionate," right? Was that? And then he was just like, wait, someone else watched it, and I watched a clip from it.
Okay.
Didn't I? Oh, it's horrible. Seriously, I can't take this much stuff. I watch my stuff for this show. I do my show in one take now. Then I go play video games.
Okay. What are your favorite video games? Are they Japanese inspired?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, okay.
I still play a lot of Super Nintendo games.
Oh.
With little pixel art. I think graphics are like whatever. I just want to play a game.
You never got diagnosed with ADD, although because kids your age usually got diagnosed with that.
Nah, I was too much homeschooled. In fact, we had so many kids in my homeschool, we were actually an official school in California.
Oh, no way.
We got a phone call once for someone trying to give me their curriculum vitae. And I was like, "Miss, we're 7 students. We're all siblings." We're like, "Go away." It was insane.
That is hilarious. So, what was I going to ask you about the music? Yeah, the organ thing is really complicated. I met the organist at my parish, and he gave me a tour, and he showed me the organ. It's actually a pretty famous model that he uses. But it looks really complicated. Did you do the whole works with the hands and the feet and all the keyboards and all the knobs and all that? Did you do all that?
Yes, but you don't, unless you're like more advanced, you don't really use it. And I was just a kind of an intermediate beginner level.
Okay. And
then I was trying to do more advanced stuff, and then it was just like,
it's hard.
This huge mountain of time I was going to dump into this ahead of me. It's like, no.
You enjoy listening to the greats, of Catholic organ music?
Yeah. Catholic organ music? You mean Bach?
No, I love Bach, but he's not Catholic.
Yeah, I like to say that I'm an ecumeniac because I think Bach went to heaven because we need him there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100% for sure.
That get me thrown out of a church.
He was sympathetic. He did work in Catholic churches, by the way. You know that, right? He worked in Catholic churches. But do you know that crazy guy Messiaens, whatever his name was?
Yes.
If you like computer music, you might like his work for Six. What's that strange machine called that he used to work with? Do you remember that?
No.
Do you know that?
His music's like insane. Like when I had a girlfriend, she was playing it. Yeah, it's just yes, I dated an organist. Oh,
it's too crazy for you.
It's so out there, and half of it is so cheesy. 1950s, like if you've ever watched An American in Paris,
no,
there are scenes in that movie which are so artsy, and that's with Gene Kelly. That like I don't even know what they're going for. Like it's the high point of American film art, in my opinion. I'm not an art critic. I'm not a film critic, but all of my siblings are. I have to hear it all day long. It's like insane, trippy drug stuff, but this is before everything became insane, trippy drug stuff. Too much.
It's too much. I'll send you a link to the crazy electronic music that he made. It sounds like computer music. It sounds like 8-bit music. It's really wild. It's
Okay.
you know, it's obnoxious like a lot of his stuff, but you know, it's interesting. It's very culturally interesting. So, you know, before we went live, you were asking me about Genesis, and I'm a big prog head. Were you a fan of 70s prog in Britain, that sort of era, early 70s?
So, again, everything for me is someone else pushes it upon me, it seems.
Okay.
I'm a very unoriginal person. My brother who's 4 years younger than me, he was living, breathing prog like nonstop. And so eventually he infected half of the family. So for a while, I used to only listen to Genesis. And then I got into a lot of current Asian pop because I don't like to hear words. So then I listen to foreign songs.
Oh, cool.
Words
distract you?
Words distract my mental process. So if I don't hear words, I can just think whatever I want to hear. I'm only hearing sounds.
My wife thinks I'm crazy because I told her the other day that when I don't like what's on the radio, like when I drive around at work, occasionally I'll put the radio on. If I don't like what's on the radio, I'll shut the radio off and just start speaking Chinese, even though I don't speak Chinese. But I do my own fake version of Chinese, and she thinks I'm insane.
But don't do that at Franciscan.
Why? They'll lock you up?
No, they think you're speaking through the Holy Spirit.
Oh, are you serious? Are you serious?
I went to the charismatic capital of America. That's where I went to college.
They believe in that?
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit, but I don't believe that these modern day people with their gobbledygook are actually doing it. It's just...
There used to be what we called the Hall of Shame, which was pictures from the 70s of them with these funky liturgies and processing around the campus. And it was insane. Some of this, people today don't understand how insane and druggy the 70s were, even in the Catholic Church. They're like, oh, it's horrible.
But I mean, there may be people speaking in tongues, but I've never seen one.
It used to happen every single Thursday when I was a preethy. They would be like, "Oh, we're gonna bring out the Holy Eucharist," and then like sometimes some people just like start shouting stuff. And we're like, "What is wrong with you, dude?" Like, it was so weird because I think 70% of the students there are pretty traditional, and I think 30% are very loud, obnoxious, and then they kind of infect you over time, or else they uninfect you. They build up your tolerance. When I was in Austria, I was infected. I was like, yeah, let's go to the praise and worship, because we all went to the praise and worship. So I went too. I didn't speak in tongues, but like I was there singing the songs with everybody else.
I'm very cautious about all that emotional stuff.
Yeah, I really, when you have an emotional relationship with music as a musician, and then you have it with the Holy Spirit, it muddies everything.
Okay.
I don't know how you're supposed to like which emotion is from God, which emotion is from me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Were there saints who these people point to as examples, like they were doing it, and so like I'm not talking about biblical saints, I'm talking about like more recent saints.
Did you see that thing that Nova Sort of Watch posted about the World Youth Day?
No.
Where there was a white guy and he was like, "Come, Holy Spirit," and then the black guy was like, "Come, Holy Spirit." It's like that. Okay. Except for an hour and a half, and it's nutty.
Okay. I don't know if you know about me. If you've watched any of my shows, you may have heard me say this, but I avoid Catholic media like the plague just because it depresses me. So, and that's across the spectrum. That's across the spectrum.
So you mean you're a remarkably mature and like normal person?
Maybe. No one's ever called me that before, but...
You have to be a little insane to be online.
Yeah.
And some of us are a little bit insane, and some of us are very insane online. So
where to go from here? What are some of the other topics you want to bring up, and I'll think of some other questions for you.
Some of the topics I wanted to bring up are that a lot of Catholics don't go up to date with certain issues, like on money and stuff, and they seem to be stuck in this 1950s socialism. Like Schupin, not Schupin. There's this Joseph Schrumpet or something. His book "Small is Beautiful," and I remember this being passed around in Catholic circles as an answer to problems. And you'd read it, and it made no sense whatsoever because it was like immature economics. A lot of the problems that I see in the Catholic world today is that we're so busy infighting without actually fighting. We don't even, as a Sede, I thought it was weird that you were like, can I interview you? I was like, who interviews a Sede? What's up with this guy? I like ignored it for a whole day. I didn't want to look at that comment. And then like, oh, we're all normal people. But a lot of people, just like when I sent a video to all my siblings, a private video, like, guys, I think SedePicantism is real. The first one was like, well, it doesn't help me in my daily life, so I don't care. It's like, I just spent 45 minutes going through the arguments, papal statements, what we believe infallibly is true, and you're like, nah. But there's a lot of that detachment in life, and it's like the real thing the devil wants us to do, in my opinion, is he wants us to despair and just become essentially like jelly. That we just take the whatever hits us, we just form around it. We don't really interact. So like, I pray 15 decades of the rosary almost every day. I have missed one day this month because I believe conversation converts no one. No one has ever been converted by a conversation unless they were honestly searching for the truth beforehand. What converts people is prayer and fasting, and that's it. So like, a lot of the problems that we have in the world are always going to go back to, are you praying enough? Are you fasting enough? And it's like, what's the big picture for SedePicante? It's like, look inward, fix yourself. It's like, and then you discover, oh my gosh, I'm the proud jerk who only wants to play video games. But when I had free time and I could just easily play video games without doing a program, without having to prepare, even like I had to prepare for this a little bit, mentally put myself in the right place. It takes away something from you, and then your pride speaks up and says, no, I demand it for myself. And it can be anything. It's like, oh gosh, that's where I need to grow. And you just see us all the time on Twitter. Someone gets accused of something and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. Oh, you said something bad about me. It's like, what's going on here? What are we doing? And if you can't roll with the punches, if you can't laugh it off, if you can't make this all into a happy joke time, what's the point? Like seriously, SedePicante's here to laugh at the Novus Ordos because there's no conversation to be had. If they're searching for the truth and they have the internet, they will eventually find the truth of SedePicantism, or they won't. That's up to God. And it's like, as real Catholics, irrelevant to whether you're a SedePicantist or not, you believe that the church is the church. You still have to do the fasting and the praying. So like, there is a takeaway from this. And it's like, pick up the cross. We all hate it. We all don't want to do it. You got to do it.
Even Jesus didn't enjoy it, but he did it. Not my will be done, but your will be done. So yeah, I agree with you. I tend to agree with you about a lot of stuff. Obviously, I don't think that the seat is empty, but and I don't think that Vatican II is in contradiction to Vatican I or Trent or anything else, but But I wanted to bounce an idea off of you because I'm a little bit unorthodox in my approach because I came to God through Satanism, right? So I was an atheistic Satanist. So my approach is a little bit different from most cradle Catholics, I would say. And so my security as a Christian comes from my absolute knowledge that God the Father is real and that he's infinite in every pure perfection, these sorts of things. And so my leap of faith into Christianity is very secure also, because when I look at the story of Judaism, what they say about the Messiah and what the Muslims say about the Messiah, it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm very secure to take the leap of faith into Christianity. And then when it comes to the question of authority, I'm very secure that outside of the Catholic Church, there's no possibility of salvation. So having said all of that, when someone tries to instill questions or insecurities, wittingly or unwittingly in me, I just fall back on the certainty that I have, and it's not, you know, I don't want to say it's complacency, but it's a little bit, you know, smug and complacent, my position, because there's absolutely nothing that can shake my faith in God the Father. And you know, Christianity, I have such moral certainty in Christianity and also in Catholicism because of the question of authority. So all of this to say that I'm very, very secure, and I'm not that worried about controversial questions and, oh, have you ever thought about this and what about that? And I just don't get too excited about it. You know what I mean? So there's really nothing that anyone's ever said to challenge me that evokes anything other than you know, laughter or whatever. You know, you saw I interacted with Aaron Raw. It's the same sort of thing with the SedePicantists.
Yeah. Well, that's the first for the SedePicantists, right? Every person we talk to, they're like, oh. Because what the SedePicantists do is that they're going to, you say something is true, well, we're going to test it, right? So you say Vatican II is true. I'm going to say, oh, Lumen Gentium 15. And so you say, well, I don't take Lumen Gentium 15 seriously. And then we go, oh, ha, Vatican I, now we've got you. So then you change the topic. And then SedePicante is all happy because now he gets to use something else in this. So like SedePicantists are annoying people. If I was a Novus Ordo person, this is one of the things I had thought about saying earlier, I would just block every SedePicantist. I would literally do it, because SedePicantists are those people who have been abused and see the light of truth, and now they're pissed. Like, it's hard to use like language like that, but it's actually true with a lot of Sedes. We went through hell to get to SedePicantism, and now we want you to come to hell with us. Because if we really take the faith seriously, and we really think that Christ is on the cross praying the prayers of his people on the cross. Have you ever noticed that Christ isn't actually crucified at the same time in all the Gospels? The Gospel of Mark, he's not crucified at the same time. And there's the 3 hours, 1, 3, 6, and 9, right? Those refer to the prayers that you would pray, like we pray, you know, Vespers, Matins, and Lauds. One of the reasons Jesus is praying on that cross, he says, Eloi, Eloi, you know, lachma sabachthani, whatever the line is, he's calling all the Jews there to pray. And they're laughing at him. It says in all of the scriptures, they say, oh, look at, he's calling Elias. They're blaspheming him as he's saying the prayers of their religion. So like in a certain sense, when you're online and you're not interacting with people, you go as wild as you want. But when you're interacting with people who are of good faith and they pray, you realize we're all on a journey to perfect ourselves. And if you don't pick up your cross and follow him, and you don't make your act of contritions and attend the sacraments when you can, you're done. You just threw your soul away. So like, I don't go after Sam Shamoun. I believe Sam Shamoun's going to hell because he's not in the Catholic faith. He hasn't accepted it. But you wouldn't be like, oh, Sam Shamoun, SedePicantism is the truth. You just turn him off. So you're trying to provoke responses in people, but there's ways of doing these things that are better and worse. And my thing as my shtick is just have fun. Okay? Yeah. SedePicante is on there to make everyone sound like they're idiots, and for us all to laugh at them, because that's what I grew up doing, watching Tom and Jerry. You're like, ha ha ha, the cat just bombed his head.
I think we need more. Humor. And it really does bother me when St. Paul says, you know, what does he say? No silly talk or something like that. He says, no silly talk allowed. That really bothers me. That really bothers me.
The saints are such a level above us. It's insane. Like, you think about it, right? How many minutes of the day do I waste? And the saints are like, I was wasting 25 minutes today. Tomorrow's going to be 24. You're like, I can't even think to that level. I think about morning job, afternoon job, playtime, right? Like that's what I think.
Yeah. Like, I'm always thinking about my next meal. You know.
So the reason why it's SedePicante is actually a pun on Pace Picante.
Okay.
Pace Picante was the salsa I grew up eating. I used to eat Pace Picante every day. And so just like one day I was working with my siblings, like, oh, SedePicante. He brings the spicy Sede-ness.
There's a powdery Latino or whatever, like a Latin American powdery hot pepper and lime powder that comes in a bottle. Do you know that stuff?
I probably do, and I probably avoid it like the plague.
Oh, you don't eat that stuff?
I don't eat very spicy food. I like a
Okay.
little bit of it, but not a lot. Oh,
Okay. When you mentioned earlier, not that I wanted to get into the weeds about Vatican II, but I am curious when you mentioned Lumen Gentium 15, that wasn't the subsisting thing, was it?
no. This is the who with us worship the one merciful God. The Muslims are the people who worship him. And since I studied Sam Shamoun for a long time, I use this argument because it's more jarring.
Okay.
The subsistent argument, most people will just hand wave it away. You have to find an argument that has teeth. And that's like a lot of the problems with a lot of online content. Like you gotta find what's weak and sink in. Like the wrong words of consecration in the Germ 2003. You got to sink that in. But now you have the right words in 2011. So now we have to have a different thing. There are other things to do, but you got to find. And a lot of people don't understand this when they
the Achilles heel of your enemy. Yeah.
It's like,
so what the whole subsisting thing is one of my favorite parts of Lumen Gentium because it has that ecumenical edge where as Catholics we're not supposed to condemn anyone to hell as a reprobate. There's always a chance that they can repent before they die. We don't know. We leave it in God's hands. And so we say that there are three types of Christians: those who are in the state that have the faith and are in the state of grace, right? Like that's the best place to be. And then that's first class Christian. And then you've got the second class Christian who has the faith but is not in the state of grace. And then the third class Christian doesn't even have the faith, right? They're potential Christians. This is what Vatican II says. And no Sede will ever convince me that that is an evil teaching because either you're a Christian or you're reprobate, and God only knows, right? If you're not going to hell, you're going to heaven. And if you're going to heaven, you're eventually going to be Catholic, right? So that's one of the most beautiful things I took away from reading the 16 documents of Vatican II.
You can take things away all you like, but the Trent is very clear on the method of justification, that it's God's action towards us first. And a lot of times we think, because we think humanly, that's one of the biggest problems that people throw against Vatican II, is it doesn't take the way God looks at us, it takes the way we look at God. So in Trent session 7, I believe it is, it goes through justification and it says that God's grace is there before we've looked for it. Of course. Like when you go to confession, you're still responding to God's grace. Nothing of yourself is worthwhile before God.
Of course.
So then when you say the church subsists in it, it's very strange because it's an alteration of the way you preach the theology, which should be God first gives every single person the grace to come into the faith. We either do or do not respond to it. And then like the discussion on church, it just muddies things up like to no end. Because we can disagree all we want. It's just going to muddy everything up. Like we know there are people outside the visible bonds of the church who are looking for the truth.
Yeah.
Whether or not they find it, whether or not they get hit by a bus, that's in God's hands.
Yeah. 100%.
And we're required by, I think it's St. Matthew who says, not Matthew, I think it's St. Paul who says in one of the letters that, you have to pray.
Yeah.
You have to pray for all the people.
Yeah.
But like irrelevant, I always like to say irrelevant of whether or not you agree or disagree on a certain document, that does not absolve you of having to pray in sacrifice.
Yeah. I got a couple of things to say. First of all, I'm a sola gratia Catholic, as I think all Catholics are. Everything is grace. I emphasize that in my online ministry or whatever. When I talk about the faith, it's always emphasizing grace. Everything is grace. And some people might want to say, well, what about sin? Is sin grace? Well, sin has no, it doesn't exist. It's a lack of goodness, right? So has no ontological being. Evil has no ontological being or substance. So everything is grace. That's one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say eludes me, but I'll just let you respond to that, I guess.
I guess. I mean, if you've done philosophy like me, I'll just say, all actions are real existing things. How can I get sued for an action? Because an action's a real existing thing. A sin is, in fact, a real existing thing. So, that's one thing that you learn from philosophy students. No matter what you say, they're going to contradict you.
Right, but sin, like sin, what Saint Augustine said, which I love, is that
Mhm.
sin is not a thing but a way. It's a way of being. It's not a thing. There's no substance to sin. There's no substance to any
Well,
evil.
there's no substance to it, but there's also no substance to my particular looking good right now. That's all accidents.
It's because you keep manicuring your beard as we speak. That's why.
It's an itchy thing. Like it just like my hands start to move. I need one of those little fidget spinners. I don't have one.
Remember when I asked you about the Aboriginal peoples, and there's this whole idea of the noble savage.
Yes.
Okay, I want to segue from that kind of set of ideas and ecology and all that sort of thing to the Franciscan notion of radical poverty and money, and you talked a little bit about economics earlier, but what is your headspace like in terms of, we already discussed like Jesus, he could make the gold, but he preferred to send Peter out to work for it. But I'm a little bit conflicted when it comes to, work. Like I see work as a penance. I don't like it. I don't enjoy my job. I never have enjoyed any job I've ever had. So, uh, so what's your relationship with money, and what do you think the church teaches about our relationship with money? And keeping in mind the Franciscan controversy over radical poverty and how that was rejected by the church.
So I'm a libertarian to the extreme. So I believe you have the individual right to be a Franciscan with radical poverty. I also think that radical poverty is a great improvement on society because it frees up resources for other people to have, and that it's easier to support radical poverty people than it is to support any other system. I think it's actually a very radical idea that Catholics can use to actually further economic development in the world. Again, it's like you can't just blanket statement everyone this is available to them, just like self-laceration is not an available publicly penance. There's restrictions placed on that. But I think that one of the great things that people in the world don't know is that one of the ways the Catholics pushed GDP growth in centuries advance was from monks eating under eating calories and overworking themselves. And I think that selflessness, and that the Catholic culture in like the 1300s, what are they doing? They're all building churches. That's a huge economic investment. They're not eating up all their food, another economic investment in the future. Like Catholicism and proper economics are hand in hand. Instead of this whole like, oh, I got to always maximize how much money I'm making because of tax man. If you removed taxes completely and removed fiat currency completely in a Catholic culture, people would naturally find the life.
Sorry, that was a bug. I had a
Holiness
bug in my room. Sorry.
in the Franciscan ways, and you would be happy to support them. You'd be happy to know that there's someone who prays 8 hours a day, and you give them a sandwich. They pray for me. Here's a sandwich. Whoa, that's really a huge burden on you. It's not. So it's like a lot of the problems is that we don't know how to get back to reset the system. So then you're like, well, but what are we going to do with $32 trillion of debt we're going to have? It's like that's an immoral usurious system, because usury, I believe, and I made a little video on this. Oh, you can check out my YouTube channel, SedePicante. Oh, self-promotion. I define usury as anything that takes advantage of another person or would do an undue burden upon them. And the Fifth Lateran Council almost says the same thing.
Have you read the Philokalia, the Desert Fathers of the East?
They were really kind of mean on it. A lot of the early church fathers are like, any money you give to anybody else, you should never ask for anything back. But that's not actually a sustainable or good system. And I think that it's taken out of context, because usury can be with any economic interaction, whether you're rich or poor. But not all that is like interest is bad. And I gave the example in my video of if tomorrow you were making $100 million because some rich uncle in Jamaica died.
Or because I had you on my podcast.
You had me on the podcast. But then your wife was like, oh, I went and borrowed $1 million at $1 million a day interest. That would not be usury, even though it's $1 million a day interest. because it doesn't set you back. It doesn't impoverish you.
Ah,
You could easily pay it the next day. So amount of money doesn't matter. But it works the opposite way as well. If it's 1 penny too much in interest on a poor person who has no way to make more money, he's permanently enslaved for the rest of his life. That is wrong. That is predatory behavior. So like usury can be 1 penny, or it could be $100 billion, and it matters the circumstances. Like it's, you got to treat people like people, man.
yeah. Well, I read a statistic somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds devastating. That every 7 seconds or so, a child dies of hunger on this planet. You know, when they announced COVID and the white man had the sniffles, everyone got their panties in a knot. They're all worried about this. Everyone in the world has to like pay attention, and we have to deal with this. But meanwhile, like children are dying every 7 seconds. So what the hell is up with that? Like, why, you know, are we a Christian planet or not? Like, what are we doing?
No.
What are we doing?
Oh man. I still firmly believe, and it is partially just because I love Austrian economics and libertarianism, that I so hate printing money. But in the French Revolution, I was told from something I watched online, I think by Max Kaiser, that the first thing they did as soon as they got rid of the king was they printed money. When the same thing, I think, with the Russians, and then same thing with the Americans after they got the Federal Reserve for World War I. All they did was print money, and it's creation of value. And this creation of value drives this whole economy insane. The idea that we would mask up ourselves in the first world to let children starve in other parts of the world and restrict trade because we wanted to save our privileged lives is the most insane thing in the world. We're all fat and dying of overweight. We're all getting diabetes over here. It's like, because we have the creation of value, everyone is subservient to that. And that's why Jesus is like, you got to work. You have to work, St. Peter, to do this, because I can create the value, but what are you going to do tomorrow? When he feeds the 5,000 people, what did they say? Oh, he's making him king. Dude, he fed us. We'll make him king. And Jesus goes, yeah, if you knew what I could give you, you wouldn't have cared about the other thing. But as soon as Christ showed them he could create value, oh my gosh, their eyes opened up. Do you know what the possibilities are? If we can get this Christ guy to make food, we literally can control the whole world. It's that pernicious.
It's a short-sighted philosophy that the elites have, and it seems like it's a trickle-down psychosis where the people at the bottom of the pyramid are admiring the structure. Like they're admiring the political economic structure. Like they like it, they want to climb it. Like, I don't want to climb that ladder, you know.
Have you seen the Trump adoration? Trump is going to jail for you. Trump is suffering for you. It's this messianic talk. It's insane. Just all the people, the poor people who are groveling to get pennies. And there's this Trump guy, and he's throwing pennies out, and meanwhile, he's got this huge growing bag of money in his pocket. And you're like, wait, what is this? Like, that's the actual shape of the world. And it's like, this is also part of the reason why I think the throne is empty, by the way. I think that when we had a pope, I think the world was a lot more stable and people actually took religion a lot more seriously. Nowadays, it seems to me a lot of people just online, they're just like, oh, I enjoy this lifestyle, so I'm just going to make content online. I don't even know how that's moral, because I thought that to preach theology as a theologian, you required to have a bishop's imprimatur. That was my understanding. I don't even know if these guys are imprimatur. It just everybody turns on a microphone or a camera and their microphone, and they're like, "What's going on?" Like, I don't know. I don't make money from podcasting. I hope I never do.
Yeah.
But like, if I did, that would be a horrible temptation to keep on being an asshole online.
Well, I lose money. I enroll all my guests in a perpetual mass. I'm in the hole, and that's the way I like it. You know, I don't want to. I'm very cautious of. You know, I know myself. I know that I'm weak and selfish. So, like, if I turned my greatest love, which is Christ and His church, into a money making thing, I'd be very nervous about, you know, which way my soul would be heading. You know, because I'm very, very, very self-conscious, and I know myself. I know that I'm an evil man and that I'm selfish. And, you know, if I had to choose between short-term gain and going to heaven, I'd probably, you know, in spite of my, you know, knowledge, what I know, my heart wants what it wants, and I'd probably just go for the convenient, easy, cushy lifestyle. So yeah, I'm very, very cautious about that.
Yep. Scary
It's
stuff.
dangerous.
And
It's very dangerous. Yeah.
it's one of the things that bothers me actually most, which I get weird vibes from certain people online. Like, I really, really don't trust Taylor Marshall anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I really think, like, I pray for him. Actually, by the way, I pray for Taylor Marshall every day. I think there's something wrong with him. And I'm putting this out there because when something bad does happen, I want to have this on record that I'm a prophet and that I'm all right in everything I say. But no, I do pray for them. I pray for every person I roast every single day. If I
Cool.
roast you, you are in.
You should roast me. You should roast me and pray for me, or just at least pray for me.
No, yeah, you'll be prayed for because you're online contact. That's the actual intention for those people I contact online.
Okay.
Always in my rosary.
Very cool. It's a dangerous world. It's a very dangerous world, and I don't know if you know or like St. Alphonsus Liguori, but he says the thing we should fear most about God is his patience, because he's just storing up the wrath, storing it up, storing it up, storing it up, store it up some more. And it's like I saw a picture of the dam, some really big dam the other day, and I just thought about God's wrath being stored up and then being unleashed, and it's very sobering.
Do you know what's also really sobering? That Jimmy Akin responded to my comment defending him.
Oh, no way!
Really weird.
Oh, no way!
Really freaking
What
weird.
did he say?
That I appreciate your seeking to understand the situation from the perspective of someone seeking to engage rather than simply mock and criticize. I guess he didn't watch the video where I only mocked and criticized him.
Oh, awkward! Awkward!
This is not the first time this has happened too.
Oh my God!
This is embarrassing.
I mean, I feel bad. I really do feel bad because, you know, this whole evolution thing. I'm a little bit callous and heartless when it comes to criticizing evolution, and it applies to people, you know, that are nice, well-intentioned people like Jimmy Akin. I do like him. I do like him. I wish him well. But I just think it's demonic, the whole evolution thing, whether it's theistic evolution or not. I just think it's demonic. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But we're all wrong about all kinds of stuff, right? Like, we're all wrong about plenty of stuff. But
yeah, but so how do we actually explain that Adam lived 900 years? This is a problem for me because we believe the Bible is the perfectly preserved, inspired word of God, right? So if the Bible gives us the insinuation that Adam lived 900 years, then Adam lived 900 years.
I believe that.
I believe that as much as Christ died on the cross. Like,
yeah, I do believe that. But I don't believe that we have the original writings. We have what Trent called a safe translation of you know, copies of manuscripts. We don't have the actual Bible. But the Bible is a mystical thing up in heaven, right?
Well, I don't know about that. That sounds like the Quran. The Quran is literally in heaven with Allah. That's the funniest part. Did you know the Quran has a trinity?
No.
If you've ever listened to Sam Shamoun, there's a literal trinity in the Islamic religion. It's hilarious because the Quran is perfectly preserved, inspired, and eternal in heaven, and can act. It's literally a mockery of Christ, and Allah has also an eternal pen. Which is a mockery of the Holy Spirit. It's like insane what other people have in their religions.
Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
This is why you get like David Wood and Sam Shamoun on your show.
Yeah, I invited David Wood. He hasn't responded to me yet because I'm just little peanuts, right? But some people, I think, you know, I was surprised some of the sort of big names that I got on. This one guy, SedePicante, you might have heard about him, and then I had I had that English Anglo-Catholic guy. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
I had him on, and I got Michael Lofton on. He's huge. You like him, don't you?
Oh, he's horrible.
I like him. I like him. I don't like when he does comedy, though. I don't like when he tries to do. I like when you do comedy. I like when you do comedy, but I don't like when he does comedy.
These guys have no charisma. It's impossible. Half of them. uh, I will say, I actually said it in one of my roasts as well, that what they actually try to do with producing so much content is actually difficult.
Yeah.
So in not charity, since this is a charitable interview, where there you do need to give them a sense of a doubt. But I think Taylor Marshall has done Guardian Angels now 5 times, I want to think. And he comes out with a better title every time. And the last time was like, Discovering Your Guardian Angel. And I was like, ooh, we can have any new content this time? Literally the same thing that he did last time. You're like, was it on time? Has it been a year? Oh, let's go. It's like these guys, they all do the same content over and over again. It's like every 6 months. The third secret of Phantom revealed again. Like,
Oh, I wanted to ask you, one of my pet peeves other than evolution and COVID is Medjugorje. Do you have any opinion about that?
Because SedePicante don't accept Nova Scotia bishops, therefore the declarations of Nova Scotia bishops saying Medjugorje is false would also be false.
Oh.
No, it's a completely fake thing. That's completely fake.
Human or demonic?
Demonic.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's demonic. I also think sometimes at Franciscan University there was demonic stuff. Because when you talk to the leaders, they all said, if you don't go to confession and you don't say the St. Michael's prayer, don't come up and do praise and worship as a leader.
Okay. You're
like, what? Yeah, and they would do it. They would do binding prayers on themselves and protection prayers before they did. And they're like, yeah, because we don't want to get possessed. Because, you get some case where someone just like loses their mind and starts sinning tremendously after they go. And they're like, well, he must have gotten a demon.
So
like, I don't know. This stuff is scary.
Are demons, do they like to hang around sinners, or they like to hang around good Catholics, or who do they hang around with mostly?
I don't know. No idea.
You don't know how they work?
Literally no idea.
What about the that exorcist guy who's popular in the sort of conservative Catholic circles? Do you know him? Father Ripperger? Father Ripperger?
Yep. I've watched his stuff. Again, as for a SedePicante who doesn't accept his priesthood, we have to wonder whether or not is this an action of a double agent or not. Like, even what I said in my John Salza video, I believe that John Salza allegedly is still a Mason, and that he's infiltrated the Catholic Church to spread discontinuity. That's my alleged opinion of Mr. Salza. But like, who really knows? God knows.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with half this stuff.
Did you read Taylor Marshall's book about infiltration? He's got it on his screen all the time.
Yeah. I bought it.
He's okay?
I bought it. I was right. I watched every single video he did on that.
Is it credible, or is it silly nonsense, or what?
Oh, it's very silly, but it's a good summary of all the conspiracies that were leading to that point. It's like, if you were to teach someone about the era, it would be a good book to teach them as a method to give them the errors, so then you could debunk it. Because Aquinas teaches in his Summa that sometimes pretty much he gives you the error position to show you what's true.
Okay.
So sometimes you have to do that when you teach.
Okay. I don't know if you know or not, but I'm going to have a controversial priest on, Father James Martin. Did you know that? He's going to come on my show. I'm getting a lot of moans out of you during this interview. A lot of moans, a lot of eye rolls.
Everything is so painful. It's like when you're
offer it up, Michael.
Do we have to watch the same movie every single year on All Hallows Eve? Like, do we have to? The answer is yes. So we've watched like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein every year that I can remember. It's a 2-hour movie.
I used to watch Wizard of Oz every Christmas with my mom. Oh. I love it.
That one's endurable.
It's a Wonderful Life. That was a bit too soppy for me.
I hate that movie. No joke. I have lost friends over my hatred of that movie. One day I will do like an in-depth character analysis, like you see on YouTube with like the documentary why this movie is so bad. I will do one of those on It's a Wonderful Life one day.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, do you like conspiracy theories? Because you know that film director Stanley Kubrick,
Hmm.
he gets accused of a lot of crazy conspiracy stuff. But did you ever get into that, going down rabbit holes with all the crazy theories about conspiracies, or no?
Yes, and I'm of the opinion that they're almost all deflections from other things.
Okay.
Like 2021 being about the moon, the rebirth child from Saturn. Because Saturn's no, Uranus is the god of dead. But there's other Saturn myths that are more interesting than that one. Like there's one version of Genesis that you can say that puts you inside Saturn. That, like, how in the flat Earth they have the firmament above.
Yeah.
Well, that would be the atmosphere of Saturn. There's actual evidence for this, by the way,
Okay.
and it has to do with like rotations of planets, origins of water, origins of myths. And like, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, I didn't actually come out and ask you. I think it sounds pretty obvious where you're at. You're on the same page with me when it comes to young Earth creationism. That's the tradition. That's the traditional position of the church, anyway, right? But what do you think about people that want to clump us in with, assuming that you're young Earth creationists, clump us in with flat earthers? Why do people tend to do that online? Knee-jerk
Uh, I
reaction.
I think people don't actually read the text of Genesis. I've heard Protestants say Genesis 1, that's when God created time, space, and matter and energy. No, that's literally not what the text says. Literally, the text says God hovers over the waters. We don't even know what that means. We don't know how God hovers. We don't know what the waters are. Like, we just don't know. And so then people are like, ha ha ha, I've got it. It's the whole girl. No, I have a theory though, and it has to do with the electric universe theory or plasma universe theory.
Oh,
And
oh,
that is, if the Earth was covered with water, and we believe that's literally true, how could the planet recede the waters? Very simple. The planet got bigger.
ah,
It just simply expanded outwards, and then that means all the water retracts, and then the mountains become visible again. Wow.
okay.
But instead, you're like flat Earth. They're like, well, the water like went down a little hole, and then like it filled up this vase. It's like you have to have an explanation.
Ah,
But everybody's explanations have problems, no matter which one it is.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I think that God, because he gave us free will and he respects our free will and he doesn't want, to force us to love him, he gives us clues and hints and these sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
and enough motives of credibility to become Catholic and be saved, and as you say, to avail ourselves in a worthy manner of prayer and the sacraments and make it to heaven by God's grace. But he doesn't force our hand and make it so painfully obvious that we're all going to sort of be forced to come to the right conclusions about everything, right? You agree with that? Is
Mm-hmm.
that traditional teaching?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right. I also think though that the Catholic Church, in her infinite wisdom, attempts to destroy Gnostic cults because I think there are secret knowledges out there.
Oh,
I'm very public about in my Rose series that I say, oh, the Novus Ordo is a Gnostic religion. I think there are secret things in the Novus Ordo religion that you can't know,
oh,
like who can receive Holy Communion. I I can give you the quotes from my Magic Bread Free Heaven of Lutherans being allowed to receive Holy Communion. At the same time, canon law says you have to be in the state of sanctifying grace. Well, so what is it? Is it a Gnostic religion with things that we don't know? Because there are Gnostic texts from the Egyptians, from the South Americans, and the church would destroy this stuff because it's not always for us to know all these things. So, like, I know I am getting a backhanded slap at Novus Ordoism and then trailing away from it as fast as possible. But there is something to be said for like extra knowledge and secrets and all sorts of stuff that we don't understand. I don't,
yeah. Well,
where did the moon come from? I can explain it if I use the Saturn hypothesis, because that also explains Mars, Venus, and Mercury.
okay.
But then, like, if you're like a flat earther or a young earther, you have to have a different ontology here. So, like, which laws are the important ones? We don't. Everything is such a mess,
Mm.
and I think it's deliberate by the forces of the world. gravity clearly doesn't work as a system. And then Robertson Janus comes along, and Robertson Janus is like, yes, but if the gravity was a constant, it would pull on the sun more, and so the Earth could still be the center of, like, thanks for making it all more complicated than it needed to be.
Well, St. Augustine talked about, our knowledge of the heavenly motions and these sorts of things, and how it really is not important for the Christian, right? And how we're supposed to, as you said, and I agree 100%, we're supposed to be turning inward and, dying to self, living to Christ, these sorts of things, and becoming saints by the grace of God. Like, that's the project. That is the project, is as much as we like to distract ourselves with whatever else we get up to, including putting content on the internet, which is, it's my hobby. But, that is the project. And I'm really not that concerned about the science, the science of health and nutrition. And sometimes my wife says to me things like, oh, did you hear about, this fruit is supposed to be good for you and that vegetable is supposed to be good for you? And it's like, yeah, I already knew that. I know fruits and vegetables are good for me, okay? In moderation, whatever. But, the whole health thing, there's a thing online. My wife, because of COVID, became sort of right-wing. And so she watches a lot of right-wing content, and there's a lot of health stuff. It's like, I find it annoying. It's just annoying. What say you?
I'm a big proponent of the carnivore diet.
Okay.
I find I feel better on it though. So like,
is that the caveman version, like the, what do you call it? The paleo?
Paleo includes certain beans in it. But no, I like eat bacon and eggs for breakfast almost every day.
Oh, that tastes good.
I just eat 500-600 calories of bacon and eggs, and you just go.
It's good energy. It's good energy.
It's great energy. The problem I have with carbs, and I think excuse me, everybody's stomach is a little different, is sometimes I get like extremely lethargic and then I crash. Also, carbs don't mix well with coffee.
And you picked your poison and you picked coffee.
Yeah. Sometimes I used to go through violent mood swings if I did carbs and coffee wrong.
Are you prone to anger?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Elaborate.
It became one of the major vices that I developed in the last 10 years. And I used to get angry when people wouldn't feed me on time.
Hangry. It's pronounced hangry, I think.
Hangry, yeah, and then it's going to be malding next. Yeah, I used to have a serious problem with that. And I used to like go work by myself and just be fuming for like an hour. I don't know.
What's your record, not to boast and brag about your virtue, but what's your record in terms of fasting?
I did a 48-hour fast just to see what it was like.
What kind of fast was it? Zero.
Just a little water.
A little bit of water?
Yeah, and it turns out that the problem is dopamine. It's not hunger. It's not ghrelin.
What does dopamine do?
It's the reward center in your brain.
Like, it just wants some action? It wants some action?
Yeah. It just wants action. It's like, it's really annoying.
It just wants the trigger. It wants the trigger, like, okay, something's happening. Yay, something's happening.
I got rewarded for being a good boy today. I got dopamine. Oh, I'm happy. When I ate sugar, I got a dopamine rush.
Yeah.
I used to be addicted to sugar. I used to actually get like a physiological difference when I drink a mocha cappuccino or at college. I remember that. It would be sugar and caffeine, and I drink it, and I'd be like buzzed. I'm like, whoa, hey guys, I'm Michael, how's it going? And they're like,
cocaine.
Little weird there, Mr. Naaden.
You never tried any hard drugs?
No. I'm too much of a square. I drink one beer and I feel it.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was on my second glass of wine once in Austria, because I did the semester abroad in Austria from Franciscan, they took the bottle away from me. Because I get very talkative. Everything I do makes me more talkative, even though I'm an introvert.
You sleep well at night?
No.
Oh.
I think the whole night. I was thinking about this conversation at 4 a.m.
Oh.
I just think. That's why I also write. Like, I'm writing my 3rd book.
Cool.
Like, because I just keep going. It's like, it's kind of weird.
Would you say you have insomnia? You suffer from insomnia?
I think I just suffer from a lack of self-control.
Uh,
Like I don't always calm myself down to go to bed. Last night I discovered someone's video and they were just like bad mouthing Archbishop Thuk, and there's a whole history of literature on that. So I just got reading it, 2 hours of studying it, and it's 11 at night, and I went to bed and I was still thinking of it. I'm laying in bed, I'm like, oh, I should have said something. Oh, I should have said that. No.
so pride's another big vice you got to work on.
Pride is a vice to work on, but it's always elusive how it shows up. Because it's not necessarily wrong to want to answer people, but like when you fall out of balance, why?
Hmm.
It's like
It's for the dopamine hit. It's for the
it's for
dopamine.
it's for the dopamine hit. This is why the 15-decade rosary is so necessary. It's like the whole world stops for the 15 decades because it takes an hour. You're like, can't this be done? Can't this be done?
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the sort of the best moments you've achieved in terms of contemplative prayer or even fixed prayers, or like what have you had any serenity, any kind of nothing?
No, I have like literally the way I'm right now is the way I pray. There's like I've never had like this religious experience thing.
Yeah.
Like I feel happy, like
Yeah.
but I feel happy from drinking coffee.
Do you, because I know you think a lot and you think about your current state and what you're thinking about. So do you ever sort of play mind games with yourself in your prayer life to say, well, I'm distracted, but you know, you have a workaround in place, you know what I mean, for your distractions while you're praying? Or do you ignore the distractions, or what's your psychology?
I have to walk. I can't sit still.
Oh.
I've actually had this problem ever since I was a kid. My mom would put me down to take a nap, and I'd just turn around in the bed. Just keep turning around. Turning around. I hate sitting still. I can go to a Latin mass and sit still the whole time, but I'm reading the text.
I see.
And I can read the Latin text.
You're
and the English
engaged.
text.
You're engaged.
Yes.
Yeah, you're engaged. You know, I've had a couple of mystical experiences, and I just want to relay them very briefly to you so that you can say, oh yeah, well, yeah, okay, I guess I've had a couple like that too myself. Because you're downplaying it a lot, or maybe that's just the way you are. But you know, I had a vision of Mary, like it was like a dream, and she told me my confirmation name wasn't going to be Augustine but Mary, and that I had a couple of mystical experiences, semi-mystical experiences, like at church, like gazing at the you know, the Blessed Virgin Mary, images of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and just little things, you know, quiet, peace, and tear in the eye, these sorts of things. Which reminds me actually of the gift of tears. It's something I really want, but it's something that I don't have a lot of access to, and I really cherish every moment when I'm touched to brought to tears, even by music. What's your relationship with the gift of tears? Have you experienced it?
Oh, I'm a very emotional person. I used to cry a lot all the time, but that's just because I'm very in touch with my feelings. Everything else is a flat zero. I'm a very middle of the road person. Like my happiness level is always 6 and 5 persistently.
That's good.
I like to get excited about some things. Like I like to eat. It's like, let's get excited about eating. That's just how I'm. Like when I watch a video and you're like, oh gosh, what is SedePicante going to do now? That's literally just how I am about everything. It's like either like my brain is on a flat line, work like an automaton. It's like, oh, guys, it's another day. But like, I don't actually get like really happy. I just like being excited. If that makes sense.
You know, when I converted to God, because I was born and raised in some loosely Protestant religion, and I lost my faith at age 14, right around the time of puberty. And for 25 years, I was an atheist of different various kinds of atheism, including nice guy agnosticism. I like to call it nice guy agnosticism, and pantheism, these sorts of things. But I came back to God, and I had sort of a mystical vision of eternal life. Like it wasn't like a picture of heaven with angels and clouds, but it was the, you know, existential contact with the fact that life is eternal. And it was, as an atheist, it was a very crushing and depressing idea, you know. You know what I mean? Just the weight, the burden of it. But then I sort of relinquished control and became a monotheist. That was one of my most powerful mystical experiences, just contact with the idea of eternal life, the idea of God, as an enemy of God. So it's kind of strange that God gave me that sort of mystical vision as an atheist. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So you haven't experienced anything like that because you've been a believer your whole life?
Yeah, I've been believing my whole life. Never had anything like that.
You've never had doubts about the existence of God or the church?
I had like minor things about the existence of souls, but like those are like little evening conversation things, nothing big or major. The biggest problems I've ever had was like wanting to go to mass because I didn't like it. It just didn't resonate with me. And then there
Yeah.
was a reason why. And now I'm a SedePicante. And SedePicantism is true.
Can you talk a little bit, not too much? Yeah, duly noted. Duly noted. Can you talk just a little bit from your perspective about the Eastern Orthodox Church, not the Ortho Bros online, but the actual Eastern Orthodox churches? Can you just talk very briefly, just a 2-minute rant?
2-minute rant. They're very nice people. I've seen their stuff when I was in Austria. We used to do this thing, me and a roommate, that we used to go to Eastern Mass at 9 in the morning and Latin Mass at 4 in the evening. We would that's how we would spend our Sundays. We were just like mass tourists. Very fun to do. That was a very fun time. That's cool. Liturgies are interesting.
Yeah.
Traditional liturgies are really cool.
Yeah. So what as a SedePicante, what do you do? What do you do now for a liturgy?
I pray. I live on a mountain in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, you don't go to church?
I have the closest Novus Ordo church I would attend when we were still Novus Ordos was an hour away.
Are you serious? Wow. An hour by car?
Yeah. You drive an hour there, you'd get up at like I guess 6:45, drive an hour to mass, come back, yeah.
Wow.
Like I could go to the SSPX, but I'm not an Unicum person. I think that's 3 hours away. Just like, and then I have to be in the car with my parents. Oh my goodness. There's years of purgatory coming off for just those years, man.
Do you have pets? Family pets?
I used to take care of a cat. He finally died after being alive for 18 years and outside. That cat would not die. He was overdue for being dead.
I have a very controversial question, if you don't mind. It's about the Jews, the Jewish question. So Romans 11 says, there's a partial hardening come upon the chosen people, but they're all going to come back in. Can you just sort of talk to me from your Sede perspective about the chosen people and how we're grafted onto the natural olive tree, and if it's easy for the Jews to be broken off, imagine how easy it would be for us, the Gentiles, the non-Jews, to be broken off. And so we shouldn't get too haughty about our position, and we're just dogs eating the crumbs under the table of the Jews and these sorts of ideas. So what say you about the Jewish question and Romans 11 in particular?
I think God answered this question when he sent an army of Gentiles in and obliterated them. And I think God answered this question again when the Crusaders went in and completely genocided them.
Okay.
If the Jews don't convert, they have no value to God. And I think that's also referenced in Exodus, where God says to Moses, I hate these people, I want to get rid of them. And Moses says, yeah, but if you do, the pharaohs are going to laugh at you. So then God says he won't. I think if you've read from Genesis to the Babylonian captivity, I think it's very clear that God absolutely hates the Jews. Now, but God offers salvation to everyone, the smart, the stupid. It doesn't matter your race. God wants you to be saved.
Yeah.
So like our relationship to the Jews should be that of one of alarming hostility with a bit of Christian charity, like it should be towards anyone who's a pagan, because a lot of the Jews have paganism in them because they rewrote the scriptures. Rabbi Akiba rewrote, you can't rewrite the scriptures. They're supposed to be permanent. They're supposed to be stable. They're supposed to be preserved perfectly by God. And they rewrote into the Palestinian Talmud. You can't do that. There's certain things you just can't do. Like when Luther adds in the word faith alone, just adding that one word, you can't do that. You've damaged the whole structure. So like
Yeah.
a lot of Jews, they're pagans, and that's how they have to be treated. We should pray. We should pray for them, but
Yeah. What was I going to say about the whole Holocaust thing? A lot of people revisionists, they want to deny the numbers and these sorts of things. Is that just a demonic distraction from the true project, which is, Christ and his church, bringing people in, getting people to heaven, or what?
In the book The Devil and His Chessboard, which is a history of Alan Dulles, he was in Australia Switzerland during the World War II, and he had no recollection that the Holocaust was even happening. The purpose of the whole Holocaust thing was to murder all of the bishops and priests in Northern Europe. That was the literal purpose. So they rounded up Jews, and the Catholics came out in protests, and then they murdered the Catholics. It was part of a diabolical plan, I believe, to create the New World Order, which came from Roncalli. I don't say that lightly, though, because they killed Edith Stein. They killed her I think they killed her bishop. They killed all the priests. Why are they killing Catholics? But they didn't go into Norway to kill the Jews. They didn't go into Sweden to kill the Jews. There's some countries who were allies of the Nazis were protected. But when they went into Catholic Poland, they were just rounding them up, and all the Catholics in Poland are losing their minds, and they round up the Catholics in Poland. So if we believe things like the Alta Vendita and the infiltration into the church is real, and that the Pius, do you know the Pius X story that they elected a Mason, and the Austrian emperor sent them a note saying that he vetoed the election, and then they elected Giovanni Sarto, Pius X, as Pope. If you believe those stories are real, I take a Catholic-centric version of all these stories, not a world history sense. Everything is an assault on the faith, or it is for the faith. And so much of this stuff, I think 7 million, 6 million Jews, I think that is a distraction from the fact that they wanted to murder the Catholic hierarchy. And they did. And has Northern Europe ever revived from that? All of their bishops are liberals now. They all just they throw up their hands and they support the liberal agenda. Why? So
how come I have never heard of this before, this take?
Well, because you don't talk to my little brother. You talk to people smarter than you, and they come up with completely new ideas. So were there Jews killed in concentration camps? 100%. There was like 0.7 million people starved to death after World War I in Europe. Like, there's massive amounts of death going on everywhere. There's no medical supplies. Would it be impossible for 1 million Jews who weren't even supposed to be in camps die? It's completely possible. The Allies bomb a rail trade now. As everything's pushed back another week, we have more people coming. Someone's got typhoid. 100,000 people die. You're like, well, how does this happen? Like, the insanity of our last century. Like, we don't understand it.
Yeah.
I
think about Judgment Day, the general judgment, and I think about we're outside of time, I guess, at that point, but we're going to get to see the truth of history, the truth of salvation history, and the centrality of Christ in all of it. And we're going to see the graces of God and how, those of us who made it to heaven, how he intervened and saved our lives and saved our souls and these sorts of things, and how he used evil for good. He allowed evil for our best, and all those sorts of things. So I think about that, I think about history, and a lot of people today are worried about figuring out the truth, the truth of 9/11 or the truth of this or that. And it's like, just be patient. We're gonna see. we're gonna see. There's nothing done in the darkness that won't come to the light, right? So this is a pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting thing to look forward to. And this life is short. It feels long, but it is short compared to eternity. And so we should be excited and happy as we meditate on the 4 last things, right? Are you excited about learning all the? What's that?
Cake, coffee, ice cream, and water. Right? The 4 last things.
Those are your 4 last things, yeah. But do you think about that? Because sometimes I think about the statistics. Like, a lot of people, on the internet, they'll present you with a graph and some statistics and whatever. And I take all that with a very large grain of salt. I take it with a grain of salt because our knowledge is so imperfect here. But I am curious. I'm genuinely curious about the real statistics, like the 100% certain guaranteed statistics that God has and that he will share with us. And, you know, I'm excited about the most mundane and trivial and silly factoids about planet Earth. You know, I'm also concerned about really important stuff. But I think that everything that happens is exciting and good because it's part of God's plan, right? So that's the way I look at it.
Amen.
So I think we've done enough here. We're almost coming up to 2 hours. I appreciate your time. And
this was a lot of fun. I didn't know we'd spiral off into so many topics. Well, it's really good that I'm so old, because when I remember myself 10 years ago, when I had less opinions and then people would teach me stuff, that's like, more stuff. Like the whole Holocaust thing, that was 2 years ago that someone explained that to me. Like that was an alternative theory that makes more sense to me. I don't know, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it makes sense to me.
Well, I can throw pretty much anything at you and I'll get an interesting answer. That's for sure.
Yes, this is why my brothers are very happy to have me not bother them. And they're like, go over there and make your dumb show and don't talk to us. And they're like, oh, okay. I'll go do that.
Oh, you're actually in proximity to a lot of your siblings? Like you live together?
2 of them live just right over there.
Oh, that's cool.
I live at home with like 5 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 6 of us at home, running the business with our aging parents, making sure that they'll have a place to live when they're finally retired. They're both like almost 70, so like they're about retirement age.
Do some of your siblings that live with you there, do they do the 1 hour trek to Novus Ordo? Because you said some of them are Novus Ordo.
No, all the ones that live at home right now are all Sede.
Oh, okay.
We're the Sede siblings, yeah.
Oh, is that coincidence, or is there a reason why the Sedes came home?
I don't know. We're all the single ones. We're all the ones that aren't married to a parish.
I see. Okay, you mentioned that before.
I mean, come on. If you're married and you're like having a fantastic time with your wife, and you're like, what about this little itchy problem over here with this document? You're like, oh, come on. I'm having a great time at the beach with my kids. Like I actually, no joke. I praise God that I'm single so that I would actually not be so involved in myself to say that I would put my kids before my faith. Because knowing me, I might do that. I might just say, oh, well, but it's good for my kids. Therefore, I don't care about the truth. Like, truth is number one.
What did St. Paul say about men trying to please their wives?
You know about that, not me.
The ball and chain. It's good though. It's good. It's good.
That's what my mother just got. She was like, yeah, and then you wake up and you realize the ball and chain's attached. You're like,
do you mind terribly if I pray that you meet a beautiful woman and fall in love and get married to her? Is that a bad
that
thing?
sounds wonderful.
Would you be okay to that?
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
We need more Sedes in this world.
Excellent meeting you, my friend. We'll do it again sometime if you ever have a topic you want to discuss or you just want to chit chat, because there's always stuff to talk about.
Yes, unfortunately. Or fortunately. Whichever one you like.
But it was great meeting you. You're a joy and you're funny and silly. That's how I like to think of you.
It's very nice to meet you. Thank you very much, David.
Excellent. Take good care, and please do remember me and mine in your prayers. In all seriousness, because I'm the only Catholic in my whole family. So, please pray for me and mine. Okay.
All right, will do.
God bless you, my brother. Love you. We'll talk soon. Bye.